We spend so much time worrying about failure. But have you ever stopped to think that success, well, that it might actually be more dangerous? It's a strange thought, I know. But today, we're going to dive into this incredible, timeless story that explores exactly that, the hidden psychological peril of getting everything you've ever wanted.
So let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're a pilot. The weather gets nasty, right? You're in the middle of a storm. You are hand flying. That means your hands are on the controls, your eyes are darting across every instrument, and you are 100% focused and engaged. But then, the sky is clear. You hit that smooth cruising altitude, and what do? You switch on the autopilot. The system takes over. And the temptation, it's so easy to just relax, to get comfortable, to stop paying close attention. And that right there, that's where the danger creeps in.
So, what is the real danger of living on autopilot? It's not some sudden catastrophe. No, it's that slow, quiet complacency that kind of sneaks up on you, making you forget you even needed to be paying attention in the first place. And there's this powerful story from way back about a king who learned this lesson in the most devastating way you can imagine. His name was Uzziah. Now, Uzziah's story doesn't start with pride at all. Actually, it's the exact opposite. He was crowned king of Judah when he was just 16 years old, a teenager. But instead of letting all that power go to his head, he started his reign with this really deep sense of dependence.
The whole principle of his early life was, pretty simple. He had a mentor, a guy named Zechariah, who taught him to seek God. And the text is crystal clear. As long as Uzziah kept up that active, hand-flying kind of faith, he was incredibly successful.
And listen, this wasn't just some vague spiritual success. We're talking about real, tangible results. He built up a huge, well-equipped army. He fortified his cities with towers and what sounds like some pretty innovative defenses. And he invested a ton in agriculture, which the source says he loved. His nation was safe, it was prosperous, things were good. But the text gives us this one crucial, almost ominous phrase. It says he was marvelously helped until he was strong. Think about that. It highlights that his success wasn't all about his own genius. It was coming from divine help. But that one little word, until, it's a turning point. It's signaling that a tragic shift is on the horizon. So what happened? Well, the very strength he was given started to change him from the inside out. The comfort of all that success, it became his cruising altitude. And slowly, but surely, he started taking his hands off the controls. He was switching over to spiritual autopilot. The turning point is laid out for us so plainly. And notice the order here. First, he became powerful. Then, his pride led to his downfall. See, it wasn't some instant switch. Pride grew quietly, in the rich soil of all his accomplishments, until it completely choked out the humility that had made him great in the first place. What we're seeing here is a total internal transformation. The young, dependent king who looked for guidance became this powerful man who really believed he was self-reliant. He went from being accountable to God and his mentors to being accountable to no one but himself. And the text gives us this subtle but really powerful clue. Remember his mentor, Zechariah? Well, after Uzziah becomes so powerful and successful, Zechariah's name just disappears from the story. He's never mentioned again. It really seems like as Uzziah's pride swelled, he pushed away the very voice that had kept him grounded. He just didn't think he needed guidance anymore.
That kind of internal pride, it eventually has to come out. It has to manifest in some kind of external act. And what Uzziah did next was so shocking, it absolutely sealed his fate. He decided to cross a boundary that had been clearly and sacredly established by God.
Back in ancient Israel, God had set up very distinct roles. Kings were meant to rule the nation. That was their job, the political sphere. But the priests, and only priests from the line of Aaron, were allowed to perform the sacred duties inside the temple, like burning incense. The two roles were kept separate for very important reasons.
But Uzziah, he was so full of pride. He thought his success gave him an all-access pass. He figured the rules just didn't apply to him anymore. So he struts right into the holy temple to perform a sacred ritual that was not his to perform. He was trying to be both king and priest.
Amazingly, 80 priests courageously stood up to him. They told him, "You can't do this. You're crossing a sacred line." And how did this powerful king take the correction? With humility, a moment of reflection? Nope. The text says he became furious.
His rage in that moment was the ultimate giveaway. It was a heart totally consumed by pride. And right then, in the middle of his fury, the consequence was immediate. It was shocking. Leprosy broke out right on his forehead. And the symbolism here is just staggering. You see, the high priest wore a golden plate on his forehead that said, "Holy to the Lord." Uzziah tried to steal a holy roll for himself, and instead he got a mark of judgment in the exact same spot.
From that moment on, the life of the great King Uzziah was for all intents and purposes over. He was forced into isolation for the rest of his days, and all his incredible achievements were forever stained by this one final, prideful chapter.
Just think about the tragic irony here for a second. This man ruled for over half a century. He brought his nation a level of strength and stability it hadn't seen in ages, and yet his entire legacy is now defined by his downfall. He wasn't even buried in the royal tombs with the other kings. They buried him nearby, like a permanent, silent reminder of his disgrace.
And his story just echoed through history. Centuries later, archaeologists actually found his burial plaque, and it carried this final, chilling warning, basically saying, "The bones of Uzziah do not open." A warning tied to a king whose pride had made him unclean, a man whose remains were not to be disturbed. So Uzziah's story leaves all of us with a really profound question, one we have to ask ourselves. We all strive for success, of course, but will that success be a blessing that keeps us humble, that keeps us dependent and hand-flying? Or will it become the ultimate test, the smooth air that tempts us to switch on that spiritual autopilot and just slowly, quietly drift completely off course?